Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new weekly podcast about hobbies, interests, and hyperfixations, sometimes our own and sometimes discovering new ones with guests or whatever. I am your host, Daniel Rustage, musician, dungeon master, card game designer, man of many hobbies and interests, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host and best friend, Mark Shwabadi.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't realize we would be listing off our accolades.
Well, I was under the impression that there's a potential that some people would be listening to this with no knowledge of our previous escapades into the world of music and D&D. So you just have to be like, this is my CV. Mm-hmm. This is why my opinions matter.
Daniel Rustage here, Riot Games Associate rapper.
We could just lie. We could open each podcast with just a list of lies. Hello, my name's Daniel Rustage, Blizzard employee. No, that's a bad one to start off with.
That's a crazy one to go through off the bat.
I just had to think of the first company came to my head. That would be bad. This is our episode on crimes.
Apparently. Welcome into the hobby hole. Yeah, I feel like
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mark Shwabadi online. You can call me either, but only if you're referring to this podcast.
Yeah. Only, yeah. You go by different names other places.
I go by different names online. Listen, I have many aliases. I feel weird listing my accolades now.
You are honestly, it's the exact same as mine. Musician, dungeon master, card game designer.
I guess so. I am technically
and teacher. Teacher. You used to be a teacher.
Teacher, there you go. Yeah, I'm a entertainer, teacher, and folk musician.
Oh, that's different to me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm a rap musician. That's different to you. It would be crazy if this whole time you weren't the rapper in any of your songs and you'd just been hiring somebody else.
I'm just the producer, except on songs where I release a beat.
That's why you used to rap in an American accent and you don't anymore, is because you used to hire
someone else.
You hired an American and he quit and he had to go, shit. I have got to pretend I'm from the north now of England.
Yeah.
This is our first episode and it is about something that we are both very well versed in, which is Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to cover a variety of hobbies in later episodes, and some of them we're going to be less versed in, but we thought it best to start with Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons is how we became friends.
Yeah, that's how we met beforehand, but we weren't friends until you started running a D&D campaign.
Because I didn't have many friends. After I went to college and I lost all of my secondary school friends, I was sort of in a period where I didn't actually have any friends, just sort of people I knew, and I wanted to run D&D really badly. And I put out a tweet, I think, saying, who wants to play in my D&D campaign? And you responded to it saying, me. And I was like, he seemed nice the one time I talked to him. So I invited you in. And then we ran that D&D campaign for 3 to 4 years, I think.
It was
a long time. It was a long time. And it was a learning experience for both of us. I was going to ask, how'd you get into DMing? But I think that's how.
Yeah. The first time I DM'd was off of the back of the campaign I was playing with you, and I was just like, I want to start running it. Let's do a thing where I run a campaign in the same world as yours, and that exploded into something totally different as well.
So me and Mark have our own Dungeons & Dragons setting. So cause I currently run, for those who are unaware, a One Piece themed Dungeons & Dragons series on YouTube, which you can go watch, and also an Isekai-themed Dungeons & Dragons series, which has Mark in it. But before then, for 3 to 4 years, I ran just my own series, and we started with Lost Mines of Phandelver, which is an incredible place to start. It's a really, really good starting adventure. Yeah. And after they finished that, we just sort of expanded it into our own world. We probably should explain what Dungeons & Dragons is for people who don't know.
Oh, I guess so. If you tune into this and you're like, what the hell is a Dungeon and Dragon?
What is a dungeon and what is a dragon? Well, a dragon... Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. It's actually quite difficult to explain, but I like to say it's like creative storytelling. It's where a bunch of people get around a table or get around a Discord call, and they assume the character of a dwarf or an elf or whatever they want to be, and they go off into an adventure, and it's usually controlled by a dungeon master who does all of the NPCs and quests and everything around it and is in charge of the game. And
I think today we're sort of focusing on the dungeon master aspect, aren't we?
No, we're doing both. We're doing both. The thing is, mostly the dungeon mastering aspect, because that's what we both have more experience in. But we will talk about being a player as well a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just the Dungeons and Dragons episode in general. It is genuinely one of the funnest things that you can do if you find a good group. But it is also something that I think is entirely group dependent, because the world is created by somebody and the players are people you know. It's not going to be like a video game where it's like a preset adventure that you can think is good, you can think is bad. You could have terrible D&D experiences. You could have incredible D&D experiences. Who would you say is your best ever dungeon master that you've ever had?
I mean, like, not to glaze, but genuinely, I've had several DMs. I've probably had like 9 DMs now. My best DM is you.
Yeah.
You are the best DM. But I think that's just because I said just because. It's a pretty big reason. Because you understand, I think, how, like, the spirit of D&D, you know what I mean, is that cooperative storytelling that you're not like...
Yeah. You're not just...
It's not a video game.
You've not written
you're not just
a
setting
book.
up situations...
The biggest issue a lot of newer dungeon masters do, or just bad ones, is they've created a book, like a story that they like, and the players are playing in that world and that story, but the players could have been anyone, and it's very railroady, it's very whatever. I think what's the most important thing to understand, at least in my opinion as a DM, is that it's the player's story that they're playing through. It's not your story, it's the player's story. So what the player's general objective is, that is what the story is. And so that's why it's really important to understand what your players like and what they want to do and what they find fun. Because it's going to be different for different players. You're going to have people who, what they want to do is they want to go and kill the big evil Dark Lord. But some players are just going to want to do things like open a brewery, and you've got to allow for that.
Yeah, you've got to deal with that.
What would you say is the worst dungeon master / experience you've had?
The worst one I've had was a railroady one, and I think part of it is like, if I look at like the best and the worst DMs I've had, almost always the sliding scale from worst to best is also the exact same sliding scale as based on experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the worst DM I've had was the least experienced one. So like that makes sense. But I've also had like pretty lame experiences with DMs who have played for years and years with like bunches of different players, but they just have this specific way that they want to run the game and they want you to play it that way.
And I think that's okay as long as everyone's on the same page. Like, if you understand that's what you're doing. Yeah, if
you go in expecting like that you're going to have a lot of creative freedom as the player to move the narrative, and then it turns out that you're kind of just in a train cart on a roller coaster.
It's like, why am I even here? Like, my choices don't matter.
And that was the worst one I've had was... obviously not to... Can you imagine if I just start naming people's names?
People.
No, the worst DM I had was basically he really had this specific narrative in mind. He had this story that he'd written up about this place in the world that he'd thought of, and he was like, I want my players to experience this, and just would not let us stray.
Or do anything.
Not even in like a big picture thing, but in combat situations. He would stop us doing certain things in combat because he was like, no, you can't do that because this character's important and they need to... You know what I mean?
Which is insane. Which is insane.
Like the moment that stopped me playing in that campaign... No, you weren't.
No. Okay.
The moment that stopped me playing this campaign was we were on this gigantic bridge inside of a volcano over lava. It's this big stone bridge, and I was playing this wizard. And I asked the DM, I was like, how thick is the bridge? And he was like, it's about 5 feet thick, the actual stone. It's like pretty thick. I was like, I'm going to use stone shape to open up a 5-foot hole underneath the enemy I'm fighting so that he starts falling towards
that's
the lava.
So sick. That's such a cool idea. Like, if I was DMing that's like, those are the moments I love about D&D, is when a player comes up with some creative solution to a problem like that.
That's my favorite part as a player for me, is
100%.
Using the scenario that the DM has given me and coming up with something like creative and fun and interacting with the world that way. So he was like, he rules it as like, okay, the character will make a dexterity saving throw to avoid falling into this new hole I've just opened up under him. He fails a dexterity saving throw and starts falling down. the sequence of events that happened after that, I can't really like explain beyond him just saying he fell 120 feet, landed in lava, and then got out.
He was a Minecraft player who like put down a little bit of water as he dropped, and he was perfectly fine.
He did that thing, where they had a bucket of water and they put it underneath themselves right before they land. He was fine.
He was fine.
He got out, came back up, and then started fighting me again.
The thing is, a lot of DMing is, sometimes you will have things that you need to have happen for certain stuff to make sense or whatever, and you have to. You have to give your players that sense of freedom, and if you are going to, there's something that you have in mind that you want to happen, you have to let that happen in a way that your players don't realize that their freedoms are being diminished, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it has to sort of be behind the curtain, behind the veil.
If this character was so important that they had to survive, it would have been cooler if they did die in the lava, but an evil scientist recovered their body and made them into this machine that's now got more of a motivation to take, Darth Vader style, sort of. There are good ways to railroad, I guess, that attach your characters more to the story and still reward your players for doing interesting things.
I think experienced DMs can railroad you without you having any idea
whatsoever. You want to get into a position where, as a player, you have no idea what your DM has planned or what they haven't planned. I think I am an awful player, mostly because of DMing, is that I can't stop thinking about what the DM has and not planned, and I will go out of my way sometimes to be like, I want to do the thing that he hasn't planned for because I don't want to do his story. So then I will try to do these crazy things, and when they don't work out for me, I get really frustrated. And in general, I don't think I've had that many positive experiences as a player in general, because whenever a DM does something that I don't like and I think is bad, I get frustrated. But when they do something that's cool that I think is good, I get really upset because I'm like, why can't I be like that? I start feeling insecure about my DMing.
You are so DM brand that you can't become a player because you're just
I'm awful at it.
You're in the code of the game.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. I kind of wish that I played first, but I started from DMing. The way that I started getting into Dungeons and Dragons was there's this incredible YouTuber called Matthew Colville. And he has a series of how to be a DM. And I obviously had heard about Dungeons and Dragons, it's in the cultural osmosis, but most people, and me included at the time, thought, oh, that sounds like it's really complicated. I don't know how to do that. But I decided to just Google it and give it a shot, and I saw his videos, and his first 5 videos in that series are so good at onboarding you into the DMing experience that I took his advice and I created a one-shot session for my little brother. We ran that. It went really well. I got some of the rules wrong, but it didn't really matter, because after that I was hooked. I was like, oh, this is so much fun. And as a kid, I always loved designing video games because I loved seeing people explore the worlds that I created. And I realized that being a DM is all the fun parts of making video games without all the boring parts of programming and the hours of game testing and whatever. It's just the fun world and ideas. I don't have to be a good writer. I don't have to be a good game designer. I just have to be a guy that has ideas, and that is quintessentially all I am. that is
I love that about DMing. I was the same when I was a kid, where I would get the game making software and stuff.
I used to use RPG Maker all the time.
All of those RPG Maker and all that kind of stuff. I had my parents would buy me these weird ones on CDs that were obviously just cheap generic game making software, but I would spend just hours and hours making it. But then as soon as it got down to the programming nitty gritty boring part, I was like,
can't be bothered. Sure. I look at all these characters I've created and this world and this overarching plot. It's DMing is the ideal thing.
It's like the middle ground between designing a game, writing a novel. It has all the creative fun broad aspects of those without, you can write a story without sitting down and having to type out the dialogue,
the prose and and thinking, does this sentence make sense? Is it? It's it doesn't matter. I'm not even that my flaws of a DM are pretty apparent. That I'm not I'm not great at voices. I'm not super great at Sometimes the dialogue of my characters can be a little bit on the nose or pretty short. Like there are even you'll notice in One Piece and Isekai D&D, I will start talking as a character and I'll be like, I can't think about what to say next, and I'll stumble over my words. It happened in the last episode of Isekai D&D. I was yelling as Wellington at Anthony over the little phone, and I just was like, I just couldn't think fast enough for what he was saying, and so I said, he takes a pause to breathe.
I do this, especially in I run like an in-person session. I do it a lot where I'm just like, the characters will ask a question to someone, and I'm like, hold on.
That's clever.
Just make them wait while I work through
work at it. Yeah, that is clever. I'm just so impatient.
I don't have the brain to be able to, snap a lead.
Sometimes it's so tricky. We've never taken like improv classes. We're not trained unless you have. Have you secretly taken improv classes?
I have not.
Okay.
I should. Improv is such a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like improv, role play, low-key acting.
Yeah.
It's like it's so many different things rolled into one.
And you don't have to be a good like improv actor. You can take these techniques and learn how to do it.
What I like about it is that like it applies all these different things, but not to like a super high level. Not even to like a moderate level. It's just like a little bit of everything.
The most
that's
important
what I like
thing.
doing. Like my hobbies are all over the place. I'm into everything, but only a little bit.
So
D&D is perfect because it's just a little bit.
It's just a little bit of everything. You could take all the stuff that you enjoy from everything else.
A little bit of game design, a little bit of character design, a little bit of novel writing. It's like
the most important thing, like no Dungeons and Dragons like skills or whatever, they're all pointless. The most important thing is that your players are having a good time. That's it. As long as they are having fun, you are running a good D&D campaign. And also, as long as you're having fun as well, like you don't want to be in a position where you're having an awful time.
If you're stressed out of your mind,
stressed.
And hating it, then,
but yeah, as long as your players are having a good time, but conversely, have you had any players that have been terrible, like actively? Because I don't think I've had many players that have been bad. I think the worst thing that a player can be is disinterested. Like
for sure,
it feels like why you
bored.
Here, and sometimes that can be your fault because you haven't properly given them something for them to be interested in. But like sometimes it feels like a lost cause. Like, or they will be so they don't care about any of the stories, even with their own character that's going on. They'll forget parts of their own character. And they'll sort of be tuning out the whole time and occasionally come in when it's their turn in combat or something like that.
Yeah, and I hate that kind of player mentality. And I get it to an extent. But it just feels like, why are you here? Why are you joining in?
Even if I'm not enjoying the campaign, I do try really hard as a player to care about what's going on. Sometimes, though, I feel like I can be punished for caring too much. Like I will know what's going on and I'll be creating ideas and plans, and a player who doesn't know what's going on will do something without any rhyme or reason or thought and essentially achieve the same thing that I have whilst caring. But I think one of my favorite moments was in one of your campaigns where you there was a I can't remember if it was a door or a box that had a secret phrase that had to be used to open it. And you had given that phrase in like 2 sessions before, like subtly. And I had remembered it and opened it using that phrase. And your reaction to the fact that I had cared enough to remember that phrase, like that was one of my favorite, because it felt finally to me like vindication for caring.
I do remember that. It was like it was like some door. It had like a symbol and pattern on that you guys had seen before with the phrase. Yeah, I do remember that.
It was like an Elvish phrase or something.
I love stuff like that. Yeah, that's so fun. But the worst players for me are not even like from like the point of view of like not caring. Like that's always pretty bad. But I feel like it's, I don't know. The worst ones for me are the ones who play D&D as if it is a video game.
Yes, 100%.
Where they get into an encounter and they're just in their head looking at the list of like options that they can do. Like there's no free ranging creativity. It's just a select few options that they think, oh, this is all I can do, so I'm going to choose one of these options and then do it every time.
I see what you
And
mean.
it's like,
Yeah.
They treat
It's
role-playing encounters like that. They treat combat like that.
Yeah.
There's no...
Oh yeah, that sort of person that goes into a role-play encounter and they just go, I'm going to go up this guy, I'm going to roll a persuasion.
Yeah, and I'm like, what do you say to him?
What do you say? I mean,
Yeah.
well, okay. The whole persuasion thing is its own thing because it's sort of like, if you have a character that has a good persuasion stat, persuasion feels like the only check into which the person playing the character also has to be good at it, because oftentimes like if you're lifting a boulder and you do an athletics check, you're going to lift the boulder, whatever. But for persuasion, it feels like it has a prerequisite of also having a persuasive argument. But like, what if my character is persuasive but I'm not? I can't think of a persuasive argument, but my character would.
I've had that kind of thing before with players, and I think the same thing with playing a character that is smarter than you. That whole thing. Yeah. Where it's like you kind of just have to work with the DM to be like, you give an idea of what your character wants to do, and the DM has to kind of meet you halfway in how they could achieve.
I think the important thing is that you're trying. Right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make this interesting story.
It's that cooperative part, because it's like the DM and the players are working together to tell a story.
Controversially, I think I used to be a player that you hated, and it was sort of a crossroads of what we enjoyed about D&D, at least when I started being a player, because I knew a lot about classes and things like that. I liked multi-class, I liked doing it. I really enjoyed taking all of the aspects and creating, quite a powerful character, because that's part of the fun for me. I enjoyed doing that. But obviously the other players weren't doing that. And I wasn't not role-playing or liking, doing the rest of it. But when it came to combat, I definitely would be outperforming everybody else because I understood how how to create a more powerful character. And it becomes a really difficult thing as a DM when you're in that position, because it's like, do I tone up my encounters? We'll get to counter building in a second, but do I tone up my encounters because of this player, but that ruins it for everyone else? Or do I keep it the same, but then this, et cetera, et cetera? And that can be a little bit frustrating. And I still don't really think like someone who plays like that is a problem, because they enjoy that aspect of it. But I understand how it can be an issue for newer DMs. And you at the time did think it was a problem.
The reason it was an issue for me was because I was a new DM and I hadn't... That's not something I did. That was the first time I'd encountered something like that, right? Like a power player. Yeah. A lot among like a bunch of other players who didn't really have that kind of build. So like I had no idea how to rework encounters. I had no idea how to balance that so that everyone was still having fun. So it just made me really annoyed.
You were really annoyed at me. Like
nowadays, I don't think I would have any issue.
And also nowadays, I don't build encounters like what's going to be a balanced encounter. You build encounters based on what makes sense for these characters to be like. Like people will notice that sometimes in like Isekai D&D or One Piece D&D, the players will go against an enemy and they just destroy them. But that's because that's not because it's an unbalanced encounter. It's just because that guy wouldn't have been that strong, or they'll get destroyed by a guy, or it's a really tough battle. But that's because that guy would be really strong. It happens quite a lot in One Piece D&D. I think a really clear example is that in like episode 3, they fight against this guy called Lieutenant Hubris, who's just like, he's just a regular Marine. He's not very strong. And it's the first time the players just completely wipe the floor with a bunch of Marines. And of course it's not a balanced encounter, but he wouldn't have been that strong anyway. It's based on like the players' experiences and stuff, and at what point these powers would exist in the universe. Like another One Piece D&D's example is they fought against a vice admiral quite early on, and he was ludicrously more powerful than they could handle. He would one-shot any of them. They still managed to succeed in that fight somehow, but it wasn't balanced because it's not supposed to be. The one encounter as a power gamer I'll always remember is D&D had this thing called Mystic Unearthed Arcana, and they never put it in an official book. Because I think it is too broken. At a base level, you can make a Mystic that's super underpowered, but Mystic functions as a class where you can take aspects of different kinds of abilities and mix them together. And I did this, and none of it are spells. There is like a rule in D&D where you can only cast one spell a turn, even if you're able to cast a spell as a bonus action. You can only actually cast one spell a turn using a spell slot. But none of these are spells, they're just abilities, and you're able to combine a whole bunch. And I think we had a combat encounter. At what level were we? Like, we were like level 4 or something?
I think you guys got up to level 5 or 6.
Yeah, but this was like before... this encounter, it was definitely early on. It was like 3 or 4. Okay. And I punched a guy and it did 68 points of damage with one... It wasn't even a crit. It was just a regular attack that did 68 points of damage and one-shot this boss. And you were like, this is unacceptable. And like I had expended most of my resources doing that. Like I was shit for the rest of the combat. But I think that's when I had to make a new character in that campaign because you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
and then you made the
paladin,
Warlock?
which
was it?
No, so that was a mystic, and then I made a paladin.
Okay.
Because it was the I had like a superhero sort of character, and then
I remember now. I remember that.
Yeah. And I don't think I haven't even touched Mystic since. Nowadays, whenever I play D&D, I try and just play a support character because I feel that tendency to be like, oh, if I multi-class Paladin and Sorcerer, I can bonus action a Fireball, and then because Divine Smite doesn't technically take even though it takes a spell slot, it's not technically a spell, so you can Divine Smite and do this on the same turn, and so you could double Smite, Fireball, and enchant your sword, and I do like 70 damage. And it's it's a bit too much. So now I play bards. Now I play clerics. Now I just try and heal and buff people.
Again, I feel like it's just that aspect of like cooperation between the players and the DM. Yeah. So if I, as a DM, knew that that's how a player wanted to play, I would be fine with it. I would be able to, make it so that the game was fun for both of us and for the other players. It's just when you don't have that experience, you don't know what to do in that situation. All
right.
I lost my cool.
Okay. When Mark gets angry, it's very funny. It is one of my favorite things. Have you ever actually been 100% like truly angry with me?
No, I think the only time you've ever made me like annoyed was in D&D.
Was in D&D, yeah.
But then that wasn't even really, retrospectively, not even an issue with you. Also, it's really funny looking back at that campaign because that was a few years ago now, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The only things I ever remember about that campaign is like what your characters, what the group was doing within the world, the story, the big fun moment. Like I only remember
you remember the fun
your
moments.
Character revealing themselves as this character that we had in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe, but because we were playing like campaigns within the same world, like there was crossover in the timeline and stuff. And
in Mark's campaign, his campaign was set 20 years before my campaign. Yeah. And in my campaign, there was this big enemy called Blinding Glare. And in Mark's campaign, I played an elf called Valdra, and I revealed in Mark's campaign that his last name was Blinding Glare. I sort of Anakin Skywalker Darth Vadered. And so I, as a player, introduced the plot twist into his campaign. Yeah,
which was like, that's like one of my favorite like memories of D&D is because it was like during downtime in a session. Everyone was just sat around. We were like camping. They're just talking. They're like, by the way, what's your family name? And he's like, Blinding Glare. And we're like...
Because it's all the same players. And it gave me a story reason to be a power gamer as well. Because Blinding Glare as a villain, his whole idea is he wants to be like a very typical villain, wants to be as powerful as possible. Yeah. So the fact that like Valdra, this elf, was power gaming, it added to the roleplay aspect of it.
Yeah.
No, it was incredible. And I think I should talk a little bit about One Piece D&D and how I came about with it, because lots of people who be listening to this enjoy One Piece Dungeons & Dragons. And I want to say, put this on the record first, is I ran One Piece D&D for about a year before One Piece D&D was a thing. Yeah. This is my secret One Piece campaign. So I went to my friends, who none of them at the time had read or watched One Piece. There was a universe into which Shwabadi here, despite being a rapper who raps about One Piece, had never seen or read One Piece. Yeah. I think even at a point was hesitant to enjoy it. You thought you wouldn't like it.
I was really like, I was like, I can't start One Piece. I won't like it. I don't.
Yeah.
You know.
I was
now I'm obsessed with it. So.
I was the reason to get him interested because I begged and pleaded. Just read it. I'll buy you the manga. But I ran this pirate campaign. I told them all it was a pirate campaign, but it was secretly a One Piece campaign. It was set in my own universe, my own world, but it was islands. There was a corrupt marine government. Pirates they could find these magical stones that would give them superpowers once they touched them, which is the same as devil fruits. And I made my own little classifications of that. And and I literally ripped off the plot of Alabaster and and Enos Lobby. I did both of them. So we did they went to this like fucking desert place like Alabaster in One Piece, and there was this it was like a corrupt kid. I had my own crocodile character, but I called him Deadshot, unrelated to the superhero, which I wasn't aware of. And it was genuinely such a fun campaign, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And it made me realize, yes, One Piece works as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah.
And so about a year later, I was like, I really want to run this because for an audience, we had run. There was a hidden little Easter egg campaign that I ran on YouTube years and years ago, back when I had like 20,000 subscribers or so. So I had run D&D on the internet before, but I really wanted to do it again. And so I decided I'm going to gather a group of people and do One Piece D&D. And I knew I had to get techie on it. He was like my number one pick. I had recently been acquainted with him through Rant Cafe, and he was super down to do it. I asked Briggs because I think I sort of was talking to him about the idea. At this point, you weren't even into One Piece yet.
I hadn't started even.
And I was playing Apex with Briggs and Spooky a lot at the time. And I asked Noble as well because he was popping in. It's just sort of that sort of sphere of people. And we ran the first session. None of them had played D&D before except for teching a little bit. And over time, it just became so much more popular than I could have ever expected. I thought I was going to run it for like a few weeks, and then that was just going to be it. But it gathered its own. Lots of people found me through that. It gathered its own following on top of that, and I get so many questions, which are like, "Are you ever going to release like a playbook on your One Piece D&D setting?" It's One Piece, so One Piece is all of that, and then you just take out the magic for 5th edition, so there's no like whatever. And then for devil fruits, they're just magic items, and you just treat them like magic items that get stronger. You just give them abilities. You have to homebrew each devil fruit individually because devil fruits are so varied, you cannot create a system that encapsulates them all. But you can do things like you can play a fire sorcerer who does fire spells, and your devil fruit is the Mera Mera no Mi, for example. You could do that.
Yeah.
And then people are like, but then how do you make like monsters? It's like the same way you would make any enemy in D&D. You just give them abilities they would have. They don't need any sort of... The thing about D&D monsters and stuff, they have an action, they function in that, but they don't need like class or rules reasons to have abilities that they do. They just have those abilities. You have so much freedom. You have more freedom than you think you have for creating D&D monsters.
Yeah.
You can...
For sure. It's just sorry, you just reminded me of like when players will ask me like they'll be fighting someone and the person they're fighting will do something they weren't expecting. They're like, "What class is this guy?" And I'm like, he's not a class.
He's not a class.
He's an enemy. That's all you need to know.
That certain monsters will have abilities on their sheet that sort of almost break D&D rules. You'll have monsters that will be like, this monster takes 2 actions in combat, right? And it's like, as long as everyone understands that that's what the monster can do, and it's established, and he still has his set amount of abilities, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Though, on that topic, what is your favorite D&D monster?
Like
from canon.
Oh gosh. I should have thought about this before, shouldn't I?
I like goblins.
My favorite. This is the issue. I like a lot of the little guys.
Yeah, I love little guys.
I love kobolds.
Yeah.
I love kobolds. I love goblins. I love the little freaky little guys. I like the big monsters as well. I like dragons. I like Dracoliches are like so wicked. But give me like a little give me a null.
Oh, nulls are good.
You know what I mean? Give me like a
nulls.
level 3 monster, and then I'm good.
Just little guys. I love playing little guys. I mean, what's your favorite? Barraging your questions. What is your favorite race to play?
My favorite race to play?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've played the same race twice in D&D.
That's true. I do like
every time
doing
I've played
new stuff.
I try every time I make a character to do at least one thing that I haven't done before, because there's so much to explore. There's so many different combinations. 100%. I think my favorite that I've actually played though is probably Halfling.
Yeah, but that's because
you played my first character
in my campaign.
That's the character I've played the longest as well.
Yeah.
Shout out Arlen.
Shout out Arlen Ori. My favorite race is obviously gnomes. I love gnomes. I think it's that World of Warcraft gnome where it's like they're like a tech guy. I've always been interested in like that steampunk aesthetic, and I also like little guys, and I also love the little gnome voice. It is so much fun to do. I've definitely played gnomes more than once, and if I was ever invited to like a traditional D&D campaign now, I would play a gnome probably. What is your favorite class?
My favorite class. This is fun, right? Before we started playing Isekai D&D, I didn't care about druid that much. I just thought it would be like I could make it more fun, like role playing kind of. I thought that would just be a fun type of character to play. The more we've played, druid is so much fun.
It's so fun. Like it just has it's got a huge toolbox of abilities.
It's crazy. It's so versatile.
Yeah,
it's not like the best combat class, but it's one of, if not the most versatile that I've played.
Yeah, I think it suits you. You're definitely one of the better players at like coming up with creative ways to use your abilities in combat.
Thank you.
And so it 100% suits you as a player.
What's your favorite class?
Paladin. But that comes strictly because I also think it's the most powerful class. Because think about Paladin for a second. Mm-hmm. It has all of the advantages of being like a martial class where you have a high armor class, you have a high hit point pool, you have all of those. And I mean, it could attack as strong as a fighter does, but you also have healing magic, you also have control magic, you have buffing magic, and you just have free ways to make your attacks do more damage. On Divine Smite is worded as when you hit with an attack, so you never lose it. You can decide to do it after your attack roll if you crit. So, and it's also the perfect base for multi-classes as well, because so many things work well with it. And I just like being. So people expect me to say bard because like musician, but unfortunately I like making powerful characters. So it would be paladin, and it's also it's powerful in a kind of interesting way as well. Like they do more because you can make a powerful like rogue, but it's sort of like you just hide and then they attack. And you can, and then I think on the other end is wizard can be really powerful, but the problem with wizard is you need to get to a really high level for it to be powerful, and it's so dependent on things like spellcasters, like bards and wizards are so dependent on how the DM runs combat, because there is no debate on things like if I hit him with my sword, it does this damage, but things like stuff that's more abstract, like imposing different stuff can really fall flat on its face if the DM just doesn't roll with it. Like there's a I think the one spell, there's a spell that's called like Bestow Curse that's in a lot of magic casters, which can be so good, but it could also just like if a DM's like really boring with it and doesn't allow you to do like a custom curse or doesn't allow any of the curses that you kind of want to do that are interesting, will just make it so it just like it makes them do disadvantage on their attacks, and it's actually kind of a shit spell. But then you get to a point with wizard when you're like level 16 and you can just like one shot kill people with your spells. But the problem is most campaigns don't get that far. So you make a level 1 wizard thinking, oh, I'm going to be powerful one day, and then the campaign ends at level 5 and you're like, I guess I never really got there.
That is every single time I build a character, I'm always looking through and I'm like, oh dude, at level 12 they get this, at level 16, and I'm like, I've never played a campaign long enough to get that high level.
Well, the highest level campaign was One Piece D&D for me, and I think they got to level 14, 15.
Wow.
Which is high. It's very high. Yeah. But they all played martial classes, so it didn't really matter. But I think when... What level are you guys in Isekai? You're like level 9 or 8?
We're level 8, I think.
Yeah.
We might have got to level 9.
You probably will be like level 10 or 11 by the end of it, I imagine.
Yeah. The campaign that we played that lasted like years, we got to level 11, I think.
Yeah.
From level 1. I think the high levels you have to make a character that's that high level and run a campaign at that high level. You can't just start at level 1 and then get up there unless you.
But some people do. Some people do, or you do like milestone.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing is like, do you like a rewarding experience or do you just do milestone? It really depends on the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, all of my first few campaigns, it was all XP, but I think I just it's harder to
keep track
of it and give it out fairly, and obviously.
And also, D&D doesn't
want characters to level separately.
Well, no, you do experience as a group thing. Like the group gets this much experience.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how I had always done it. But D&D doesn't have any sort of written rules for granting experience for anything but combat. And obviously, if you solve a situation in a peaceful way, you shouldn't be punished for not getting that experience.
Yeah,
so for my campaigns, I still do experience. For Isekai and One Piece, I still do EXP, but I just do it entirely privately. I do private EXP. So you guys will do quests, you will do combat, and I've assigned experience amounts to it, and I keep track of it. And then when you hit that level threshold, I would then be like, you guys have leveled up. So you guys don't have to do the maths or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I think everything that I do now is all sort of milestones. I just kind of keep track of what they've done, how far they've come, and what would make sense.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes the downside of milestones is players can feel like it doesn't matter what they do because they're still going to level up anyway, right?
Yeah.
If you're thinking from that perspective, it takes away a little bit of that agency to do quests and do whatever. A lot of the time it doesn't really matter. And also, I feel like in milestone campaigns, you level up quite fast. Sometimes because DMs will just be like, now you level up, and the players will get to way higher levels than they expected.
The reason I like that aspect of milestones is that in certain campaigns, like my in-person one, I only run it maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot less often. So I don't want it to be 6 months between sessions and then the character's like, well, we might level up in another 6 months, who knows? I want them to feel more attached to the progression of their character, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like leveling them up quicker makes sense when we play less.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's pros and cons to everything. I think that's what's great about D&D is that everything is has a pro and a con. All right, let's end off with, unless there's any other questions you want to ask about D&D in general, but I
don't think so.
We wanted to end each down the hobby hole episode with a sort of a draft in relation to we'll have segments in future hobby hole section episodes as well. A lot of them will, some episodes will be more freeform, some will not, but we want to do some sort of ranking or draft at the end of the episode. And our idea for Dungeons and Dragons is for us to essentially do a draft of who we would want to run D&D for, dead or alive in history.
Yeah.
And how this works, if you don't know what a draft is one of us will pick someone, the other person will pick someone, and we go back and forth until we both have a list. We're going to do a list of 4, I think. Then you guys in the comments or on Twitter or whatever will tell us which one do you think would be a better D&D party. And that's how we're going to end off.
Okay. We'll just let the listeners.
We could debate it. We could debate it, but
obviously, but we'll let them have the final word.
We'll let them have the final word. I'll tell you, I haven't actually done any prior thought about this draft. I imagine
Me neither.
You have. Okay.
I haven't. I purposefully haven't. I know, obviously, we had this section planned for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to think about it because I just.
You want it to come to you. You want it to be.
I want it to come to me naturally.
Oh, natural. Okay, then who's your first pick?
Daniel Rustage. No. Okay. Sorry.
You don't want me as a player. You don't want me as a player. It's true. You don't want me as a player.
I feel like nowadays I actually would. I would be very interested to.
I think if I ever were to be in another campaign, it would have to be one of yours because I just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to draft you. I feel like what I'm trying to think of is I want a variety.
Yes.
And I want creative people.
Yes.
And I just want a couple mad cunts, but I don't want them all to be.
Yeah. You want the wild ball.
Yeah. So I feel like I'll open No. Every time I think of someone, I'm like, I don't want to run for them.
I don't want they're an arsehole.
My first pick was Brandon Sanderson, and then I was like, I don't want to run for Brandon Sanderson.
No.
I don't want to run for an author. They'll
critique everything I do.
Yeah.
That was genuinely my worry about having Daniel Green on Isekai D&D, is because I know he reviews books for a living and he's also an author. So I was so worried that he would be like sitting there like, this story isn't very good. But it's so crazy how the opposite he is. Like, I thought he would play and it would be like, he'd take it, he'd have his character in the story and it would all be very regimented. And he ends up being the craziest player I've ever had.
Yeah. He's just mental.
And he's having an incredible time with it. He's having a lot of fun with it, so I'm very happy about that. It's Dead or Alive, and we're under the assumption that they can all speak, like you'll be able to communicate with them.
Yeah.
If they do not speak English.
Through magical means.
I
feel like it would be interesting to have a character who plays essentially themselves.
Yeah.
I want Matsumoto Musashi.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you'd have to understand why. For anyone who doesn't know, he's a legendary ancient Japanese swordsman, author of the Five Rings. Is that what I can't remember what the book is called. He has a book that he wrote that's about swordsman techniques. Yeah. There's also books about him. He's also the basis of the anime Vagabond, I think. I've not read it. Yeah. But he is a real guy. That is crazy. Wow. Shit. David Mitchell. I just think
David Mitchell would be fucking hilarious.
I think he would be so funny because I think he would be very uncomfortable at first, but he strikes me as someone who would. There's lots of people I've run for who are uncomfortable about the idea of D&D, but as they play, they get more and more into it. I mean, I can name drop. We have one friend called Olaf, who was a friend of mine at college, and he was very hesitant to play D&D with me at first, and now he fucking loves it, and he loves playing his character, and he gets really into it. I feel like David Mitchell
would be such a rules lawyer.
Yeah, he would be such a rules lawyer, but that's fine because I know all my rules, so it's okay. I actually don't mind rules lawyers in games because I like being reminded of rules if I forget them. I've honestly been pretty pro, and I can put my foot down if it's something that I want to rule differently.
Yeah.
Again, for those who don't know, David Mitchell is a British comedian from... he did the Peep Show, and he's also on Would I Lie to You, and I just think he would be very funny. Who's your second pick? It's a tough one, huh? You're Googling someone?
I had to Google something.
It looks like you're Googling
I had to Google
someone.
something. Because you've just reminded me of comedians, and I think... I feel like one comedian is my limit for my like group, but I feel like I need to have one, and I feel like Sean Locke.
Oh,
because he's sort of the antonym.
We are really alienating our American audience with this. Yeah, with this section.
Another British comedian. I'm sorry, but that's it for British comedians.
Sean Locke's great. Sean Locke is great. All right, I will then go. All right. Fuck. William Shakespeare.
I thought Shakespeare earlier,
Yeah. Also because I think David Mitchell's a big William Shakespeare fan, and he'd be more willing to play D&D with me if he knew Shakespeare was there too.
Getting David Mitchell only because William Shakespeare agreed. Okay. John Madden.
What? Oh, sports people.
I'm drafting these people assuming that I know the classes they would play in my head.
Musashi would be like...
He's a fighter. Sean Locke is a bard, and John Madden is a barbarian.
I honestly thought Sean Locke would be a warlock, to be honest. It rhymes with his name. Like... Sean Locke, Warlock.
Fuck, it does. Oh, wait a minute.
And that's how we decide
I don't know how
everything
big
in life.
on rhyming he is, though. But yeah, John Madden.
John Madden.
I'm trying to hit the balance with all of these guys.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So someone that is creative, it would be fun to have in a campaign. Dead or alive. Oh gosh, I genuinely don't know. genuinely don't know, because it's one of those things where there's so much choice.
Yeah.
And it's such a variety. Like, who... But you bring up... It's such... Okay. I'm going to go with Stormzy. Because I think the dynamic between Stormzy and David Mitchell and William Shakespeare would be very funny. I also think
would be incredible.
I also just think he would get into it. I'm drafting, I think, a lot of people that would be hesitant, but then would get into it once they get into their characters. And I would love to see...
What's fun as well is I feel like those three would get along really well.
Yeah, genuinely.
Whereas I don't think my players necessarily... I'm pulling them from different friend groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, what's your final pick?
Okay. My final pick is it's Joan of Arc.
I don't... Okay.
I think she would, she in my head is the one in the party who would be like the driving force for the plot.
Okay.
She would keep people on track, and also she can play a really good support class like a cleric. It was either her or Mary Curie, and I just don't think Mary Curie I've
got a banger final pick.
Go on.
Socrates.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Isn't that good? That's a...
Okay.
I imagine the duo of Stormzy and Socrates and William Shakespeare and David Mitchell. That's
a crazy lineup.
Wow.
Yours has a weird cohesion.
There is a cohesion there.
Whereas mine, I feel like feels like it would be quite a mechanically
mechanically balanced.
It'd be quite a balanced party in terms of like their picks and stuff.
I've definitely chosen a lot of orators. They're orators of 4 different genres. Mm-hmm. Comedian, writer, rapper, and philosopher. But they are definitely all orators.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I don't know, I just feel like they'd all bring something special, but also have that cohesion to be quite a fun party.
I've only picked people who have definitely won a bar fight before.
Oh, gosh. Oh, so have I, actually. So have I.
Well, David Mitchell.
Yeah. It didn't have to be like a physical fight. He's definitely said, somebody's brought up a fact and he's gone, well, actually... And he has won that debate.
The battle of wits.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys say. Can you give me your lineup again as a straight?
My lineup was. It was Musashi, John Locke,
John Madden,
and Joan of Arc.
And mine is David Mitchell, William Shakespeare, Stormzy, and Socrates. Tell us in the description which one would be a more fun or better. Which one would, if I had to do like a D&D podcast and either of them were the players, which one would you want to watch more? Also, in the comments, or I guess tweet at me, and maybe we'll have an email at some point. Let us know what sort of hobbies and interests you think would be interesting to listen to us either talk about or discover in future episodes of Down the Hobby Hole. We're planning on putting this out weekly. We're going to be doing this for at least half a year. We're going to put out episodes and we'll see. We'll see if people like it. We're going to have a good commitment. You can expect at least 20 to 30 episodes of this, even if nobody watches it. But if there is demand, we'll keep it. We'll keep the train rolling. Yeah, and
we just need an excuse to have fun little calls where we talk to each other about random niche shit.
100%. Me and Mark, we never talk. Because we're both so busy in our own little worlds. We do not talk as often as you think friends would.
Yeah.
And this gives us an excuse to talk and be friends.
Genuinely, this first episode, it just felt like a conversation we would have on the tube while we're going somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. And also, it's 20 minutes longer than what we said it was going to be. So.
Oh, is it? Wait, how long have we been going?
We're going for 53 minutes.
Oh, damn. Okay. We're going to try and keep these a little shorter.
Usually around 30 to 40 minutes per episode is the plan. But
this is the pilot. It gets to be longer, you know?
Yeah, it gets to be longer. And also, if you guys want us to go longer, fuck you. No.
We don't got time for that.
We're busy people, huh? We're doing this for fun, huh? I make a song every other week, and I run 2 D&D podcasts, and I also have to have my allotted times for when I cry. So, I'm a very busy man.
So there you go. I'm also busy, but yeah. I don't have quite so much going on.
I don't know why that makes it sound like you do criminal activity.
I'm racketeering, so I'm just like
I'm also busy, but
busy.
we don't talk about that.
I don't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next episode every Monday. That's the plan. I'm putting these out every Monday. And I had a planned intro. I don't have a planned outro.
Thanks for coming down the hobby hole with us.
Yeah.
How do I get out of here?
Let it out!
But it's so deep.